could you just tell us your first name, please? Your first and last name?
John A. White,
How old are you, sir?
94.
Sir, could you tell us, at the time you joined the Marine Corps, where were you living at? Where was your home?
During the World War II, I joined the Marine Corps in Macon, Georgia on April 9th, 1943.
How many years did you serve, sir?
22 and a half months.
Okay. What was your job while you were in the Marines?
I was an asthma setter on a 155, on a 90 millimeter. I did security, security guard, just a little bit of everything that I was assigned to in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I was attached to the Fleet Force Office, and on the destroyer Exeter, I put the mail on it for the Indianapolis. I was in 51st Defense Battalion, the 1st Black Combat Unit. I actually didn't see no combat, per se. I guarded Japanese prisoners of war.
You joined the Marines. You chose the Marines?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you want to join the Marine Corps?
Well, back then, during the war, Eleanor Roosevelt, J. Philip Randolph, and Bethune-Cookman, they just opened the Marine Corps up. And before then, they didn't want a black. Incidentally, at my graduation on July the 4th, 1943, General Holcomb stated, "When I returned to America and found you people wearing our globe and anchor, I knew there was a war going on." He was a racist, and he didn't want us in the Marine Corps. But we proved, he also stated, "I wished I had 5,000 white Marines than 50,000 blacks." It was, a racist thing back then. And we broke it down. And I'm proud of it.
Can you just tell me about basic training? What was basic training like for you?
Oh, our basic training up at Camp Lejeune, the drill instructor, I never will forget, it was snowing. And he called us out. He had his T-shirt on, skivvy on. And was he have socks or shoes? Well, anyway, he carried us out, and we were beating the curbing in the snow. Many, well, I've seen snow before, but many of them had never seen snow. And they had the drill instructors back then had served in Nicaragua, elsewhere, and until Hashmark Johnson, when they made the first black drill sergeant. I'm mischievous. One of the drill sergeants, I named Williams out of Jacksonville. I caught 3 garter snakes and put it in his bunk. At Camp Lejeune, we had bears and snakes and what have you. And you lay a board down at 11 o'clock, go back there at 1 o'clock, there's a moccasin or rattlesnake under it.
If you're ready to begin, sir?
Yes.
Okay, for the camera, could you tell us your first name and last name and your age?
My name is Ivor Griffin. I am 92.
Okay. And where were you living at the time you joined the Marine Corps, sir?
In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
So did you decide to join the Marine Corps, or were you drafted into the Marine Corps?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned it. I was sort of drafted, but I went and volunteered for the not civil service, what was when they were drafting people, what they was calling it?
Selective service?
Yes, selective service. I went on down at 17 with a couple of my buddies, said, let's go on down and register. Well, they were 18 and 19. So we went down, and not volunteer now. We registered. But the funny part of it is, they registered, I registered. In about 4 weeks, they called me. They were still out, civilian life. And I went on down, and they had us lined up. After had the physicals, they had us lined up. And this is how they would go around. You Army, you Navy, you Army, you Marine Corps. I was the only one picked for the Marine Corps. And that's how I got the Marine Corps. I volunteered, involuntary. Yeah, so in about, I guess, a few weeks after that, I had orders. And I didn't know what I was getting into, but I didn't know about the segregation down south. We had it up north, but not, it was subtle, you know.
And sir, when they told you, when they said, you Marine Corps, what did you kind of first think?
Well, I said, well, I knew the Marine Corps had a very good reputation, and I liked that, you know.
What was the reputation of the Marine Corps at that time?
Gung-ho, and the Marines trained hard, and it was like a special group, and that really interested me.
What did your family and friends think of you going to the Marine Corps?
They thought I was nuts. Yeah, actually, friends in the neighborhood, and I was in like a drum and bugle corps, and they said, "Why did you pick Marine Corps?" I said, "The Marine Corps picked me." So that's how it went.
How long did you serve in the Marine Corps, sir?
21 years.
When you first enlisted, what was your job and what unit did you serve with?
Well, after going through boot camp at Montford Point Camp, I was lucky enough to get into a training in communications, and I started off as a lineman. And I kept that position for quite a while until I went overseas and everywhere, and also electrician. And also held the position of exchange chief.
Where did you serve at overseas, sir?
Saipan, Guam, Okinawa, Tawara, Korea, and the Med, because that was on Med cruises, yeah, and other places which were in the States.
Can you tell us, sir, when you first arrived at basic training, what was that like for you? Kind of what was your first thoughts? How did you first see everything?
Well, first of all, I go and tell you, when I got my orders, got the train in Philadelphia, took me to Wilson, North Carolina. In Wilson, we were supposed to take a bus, and it was other prospect Marines on there. So we went to the bus station, and that's where I got my real learning of being, segregated. Because we went to the bus station, and I started going to section here. I said, no. I said, boy, you got to go in this section here. Little old cubby hole. And the white section, they had the nice seats and everything. But anyhow, we got on the bus, and the driver said, you boys going back. Couldn't sit up front. So I started to say, and a black person on the bus said, do what he says. I said, okay. And the bus took us from Wilson to Jacksonville, North Carolina, and that's where I really got a blow. And when I got to Jacksonville, off the trailways in Jacksonville, North Carolina, the station was the same as up at Wilson. And I was picked up by the MPs and took me to Montford Point camp.
And what was Montford Point like for you?
Montford Point. Like here at Parris Island, you have staff sergeants train you. A private trained me.
Mm.
Yeah, I was in a platoon, and he was mean as a junkyard dog. And he made sure we got our training. And I'll give you an example. He told me, I was right guide at the time, he says, Private Griffin. I said, yes, sir. Go and shoot that tree down. But I knew how he was. He was mean. So I said, I know what I'll do. I went over to one of the pine trees, bit off a piece of bark, and brought it back to him. He said, now that's what I'm trying to show you, Marines. Don't say I can't do it. You don't know until you try. But you know I paid for it. You know how I paid for it? A critter was on that bark. It got to my lip. And you know what happened. He bit my lip. But they were laughing at me for a couple of days because my lip was swollen up like that.
What were your drill instructors like? Drill sergeants, what were they like?
Drill sergeants was over about 3 platoons. And they had corporals and privates that were the instructors, regular instructors. I had a private, and he was, like I said, he was very mean and hard, I'm telling you. And I went through boot camp, met a couple guys that became my very close friends, Glenn White and a Nathaniel Jose. They all passed now. Nathaniel Jose was a master gunnery, and Glenn White was a gunnery sergeant. So they were my best buddies, you know, because we all came from the north.
Sir, I'm curious about your drill instructors. Did you have all African American drill instructors, or did you have some white?
Yes, all African American, because the whites trained them.
Yes.
And they, in turn, trained us.
Were there Marines in your platoons that, when they graduated, they were selected to be drill instructors immediately or be trained to be drill instructors?
It might have been 1 or 2. But I went to communication school, and some went overseas, and some went into steward. They became stewards. Some went in motor transport.
Now, and how long, again, did you say you were in the Marine Corps, sir?
21 years.
Sir, how would you say, from your perspective, how do you think socially the Marine Corps changed from the time you first joined until when you left near the end of your career?
Well, I'll give you an example. When I was at Quantico, to get to Main Side, and have you been to Lejeune?
I've been to Lejeune before, sir.
Well, to get to Main Side from Montford Point, we had to have a white escort. That's right. And that didn't break down until, I guess, 1948 or 47. And then we could go to the Main Side. And then, you know, outside is a little joints in Jacksonville. They had the regular juke joints, but they were white. We couldn't go on them. But we went down to further, like across the tracks, and they had black neighborhood, and they had little juke joints, and we'd go there. But if we went there, we had to make sure we get out there by 12 o'clock, because we missed that bus going back to Montford Point camp. You had to walk, and it was pitch black out there. But that's how it was.
And did you, I'm assuming you saw that kind of improve throughout your career?
Yeah, gradually improved, yes.
Would you be able to tell us a little bit about your time overseas, sir?
Well, I was in 11th Marines, 4th Battalion, 11th Marines, and I went overseas to the 10th Battalion, 10th Marines, 4th Battalion, and I was a lineman there, but also communications chief, also electrician. That was about it, yeah.
Were you involved in combat at all, sir?
Yes.
Would you be able to tell us about that, if you feel comfortable?
Well, my combat experience was when I went out on we call a outpost. On an outpost, a team outpost with communications, a wireman, radioman, and I forget the other two men. But we went up on the front lines and we served. You know, I tend to the communications. And one day, after being up there, I woke up the next morning because below us was a grunt below us. They had repelled, attacked. But the next morning I got up, I said, something's funny, something's wrong. And I looked through the bunker, and out there, way across, you can see on the mountains, soldiers dressed in white and black hats. Come to find out, that was the armistice.
Mm.
Yes. And not long after that, I went back to my community, my outfit, and we on I think it was Thanksgiving Day. I know we ate Thanksgiving dinner on the banks of the Yellow River when we pushed forward to push the regulars out, and then we stayed there for a while. And then they told us to go back to our original positions, and that's where our original positions were.
And sir, you stayed in the Marine Corps for quite a long time.
Yeah, yes.
Even though you didn't receive equal treatment.
Right.
What made you decide to stay in the Marine Corps so long, even though you didn't receive equal treatment?
Well,
early in your career?
I got out, and I stayed for a couple of years, and I began to miss the camaraderie that I had with the Marines. That even with the white Marines then, because things were pretty good over there at that time, and I decided to come back in, but I had to come back in. I missed it by a month, a couple months. Missed my rank. I had to go back in as a PFC.
What rank did you leave as?
Well, I had problems in the Marine Corps when I was in communication, but I came out as staff sergeant.
Mm. How long was it that you were a civilian again before you rejoined the Marine Corps?
I was civilian about 2 years before I came back, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I was about 2 years, and I was stationed at the time at Fort Mifflin, and that's in Philadelphia, which is my home. And it was an ammunition dump spot. All the ships, Navy ships that came into the Navy Yard in Philadelphia, they had to drop off the ammunition there. And I was in the guard detachment there. And all we did was watch the stevedores unload them and put them in the bunkers. And we patrolled the area. There was as a Marine barracks.
And so what was that like? You had served in the southern part of the U.S. What was it like being active duty and more in your hometown?
Well, like I said, I guess you can say I was lucky because when I got discharged the first time, all my buddies, they were sent to Korea, and over half of them got killed. And I had seen a couple of them come back, no legs, arms, and And I met one guy. I said, "What about so-and-so and so-and-so?" He said, "Griff, he got it." And he told me that all the fellows that got it. Because everybody that went overseas from Fort Mifflin, they had 85% casualties. Yes.
And so, sir, you were serving in the Marine Corps when they began to integrate. Can you tell me what that was?
1947, when President Truman put a law out that all military was integrated, and that's really started. He really started integration.
What was that like, serving in the Marines at the time when the Marines began to start integrating?
Well, for me it wasn't too bad, because when I went back in Marine Corps, I went to camp. I went to Quantico, and I was in communications there, working at Quantico on the wires and the lines, and from there I went to Korea. And guys was all right to me, you know, at Quantico. You know, you still had that pocket of people that still were prejudiced.
And when you served in, I know in World War II things are fairly segregated, but when you served in Korea, it was more integrated, I would guess?
Yes, well, they had to be more integrated when you're over there fighting, you know.
Of course.
Yes. In fact, I had a lot of friends there, you know, because I was in a howitzer unit, and pretty much safe, you know. But we did have to go out and patrol and stuff like that.
And sir, I'd like to ask you just your opinion. The Marine Corps has gone through a lot of changes, social changes from the time you first served.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Marine Corps of today?
Well, I'm very proud of the Marine Corps today, because of 3-4 generals I know, they were retired lieutenant generals, Lieutenant General Gaskins, Lieutenant General Williams, and some others. And it was pretty good, you know, and I was proud. I was proud that they were proud of me, because they said, "We stood on your shoulders." You know, that made me pretty proud. He said, "We stood on your shoulders, and we thank you, because you made it possible for us."